The herd of humans continues to move forth with their everyday habits, but for some, that movement has abruptly stopped. A head count would find that several members of our ever-growing community are unaccounted for, and the traces of them are quickly fading too. Number 10. Aloha, Oregon was home to Dane Davis for a good portion of his life. There he worked at Wells Fargo until his retirement, which would give him a significant amount of free time to embark on the walks that he enjoyed so much. These frequent walks, though, would eventually lead to a daunting mystery. It was 2016, and Dane was 66 years old, living in the 21,500 block of Southwest J Street. It was that year that he received an unfortunate diagnosis. He'd been struck with the unforgiving ailment of dementia. The diagnosis left the family searching for a facility to move him into, and they were working with the local nonprofit organization. As they attempted to secure a position for Dane, he continued his walks with the time that he had left. His route would take him to the Hillsborough Promenade Shopping Center, Wendy's, and Albertsons, located near Cornelius Pass and Baseline Road. Dane was also known to ride the MAX trains and various other forms of transport. The 18th of October, though, would mark his last stroll. It was that day when Dane was last seen in J Street at his home checking the mail. After not seeing him since that day, the caretaker reported him missing to the local police department, prompting a welfare check that would be carried out on the 20th. Police arrived at the home, hoping that they would find Dane there, or at least some suggestion as to where he might be. During the investigation, they found that his vehicle was still inside the garage. Of course, this wasn't particularly unusual given that he'd been suffering from dementia and was ill-equipped to operate a motor vehicle. Unusually, though, they did find that the front door to his home had been left wide open, but Dane was nowhere to be seen. Strangely, his cell phone hadn't shown any activity for 5 days prior to his disappearance. This wasn't the first time that Dane had gone missing either, and he had quite the history of dropping out of sight, concerning his family members. Earlier that year, he'd been reported missing twice, but was found safe both times. It was these two separate incidents that led the family to consider a secure living facility. Unfortunately, a position couldn't be secured quickly enough, and on the third time that Dane vanished, he would stay missing. The missing man is unable to care for himself due to his condition. The family's worried that he's unable to help himself and fears the worst. 9 years later, those fears haven't dissipated. Dane Davis would now be 75 years old, and for the past 9 years, investigators have not given up, and as early as 2023, renewed efforts have been made in the case. The family has been working closely with detectives too, hoping to finally bring him home. Dane's case remains unsolved. Number 9. Was Cora Christmas McGurk a victim of the Green River Strangler, also known as Gary Ridgway? This is the question that's had many on edge since 1991, when Cora ominously vanished without warning. The 22-year-old had grown up in Chicago, but later moved to Washington following her high school career. Upon her arrival there in 1986, she secured a job at the University of Washington Medical Center gift shop. She'd also enrolled in a program at the university for electrical engineering. After becoming involved with a man believed to be affiliated with narcotics to an unknown extent, Cora would drop out of school and quit her job. It's unclear if the woman herself was on any narcotics, or if she had any similar dealings as her boyfriend. Regardless, as an indirect result of these events, she would become another missing person on an overflowing database. It was early July when she first disappeared, only to return 2 days later, acting strangely and causing concern. Her aunt asked her if she was okay, and Cora smiled and said that she was fine. But her next sentence would prove otherwise. She instructed her aunt that if anything were to happen to her, she needed to look after her children. Then, on the 12th of July, the young mother of 3 would leave her Seattle, Washington home and never return. Relatives are reluctant to believe that she would leave willingly, maintaining that Cora may have suffered an ill fate. Sometime after her disappearance was reported, on an unknown date, the woman's vehicle would be found abandoned on Aurora Avenue, a street that may sound familiar to true crime enthusiasts. It was from this location that the Green River Strangler was known to pick up his victims. Gary Ridgway was arrested in 2001 and was named the most prolific slayer in United States history, with the conviction of 49 homicides. All of his victims were women, either ladies of the night or those who were in vulnerable situations, including runaway teens. Ridgway's spree had been carried out between 1982 and 1998, placing Cora's disappearance and location at the center of it. This information led to her name being placed on the list of potential and suspected victims. But it's unknown whether or not the assailant was ever directly asked about Cora in particular. Without a body, evidence, or confession, the missing woman's fate remains unknown. Her initially 2-day-long disappearance suggested that something else may have been going on. Her odd behavior and knowledge that something might happen to her only support this theory. Many wonder if someone in her life may know more about her case than they're letting on. Number 8. Not much is known about the past of Samuel Reiser, aside from the fact that he'd been awarded custody of his daughter following a divorce. It was 2010, and the 60-year-old was living in Glasgow, West Virginia, along with his 17-year-old daughter, who was at military school. As far as most were concerned, life was going well, and he seemed to have no enemies. The eerie details of his case, though, would suggest otherwise. It was early December, and Samuel was living alone since his daughter was in military school. He resided in the 300 block of 3rd Avenue, the location where he would last be seen around 5 p.m. on the 7th. In the days to follow, he would not show up to his job at the coal mines, prompting concern among his employer and relatives. It was uncharacteristic of Samuel to miss work, especially without calling in first. Worried about his well-being, the landlord headed over to the home, hoping that his tenant was just down with a cold. Upon arriving there, though, he found the home ominously empty, and on the 11th of December, a missing person report was filed with the Kanawha County Sheriff's Department. Upon the initial investigation, officers would learn that Samuel had not been in contact with family members for several days, nor had he been seen by any of the neighbors, who suggested that this was all very out of character. Authorities then turned their attention to the empty home. They searched the outer area first, finding no signs of forced entry. The lights were still on, and they could hear the TV playing from inside. With no response to their repeated knocks, the police decided to enter the residence. They didn't know it yet, but they were about to walk into a distressing, unexpected scene. It was immediately apparent that an altercation had taken place inside the home. Items had been broken or strewn about, and traces of vital fluid suggested an injury. This didn't appear to be a robbery gone wrong either. Nothing was missing aside from Samuel, whose car was still parked outside. Immediately, the case saw speculation of foul play, and a lengthy investigation would ensue. After some time, police suggested that they had 3 persons of interest in the case, but never publicly named who they were. As of 2025, no one has been charged or arrested in the disappearance of Samuel Reiser, and the suspects remain unnamed in the media. A spokesperson with the investigating agency suggested they did not believe the man had any affiliations with organized crime or illegal activity, and instead they believed that whatever happened to him was significantly more personal. Number 7. It was the 16th of April, 1996, 5 p.m. in Edwardsville, Pennsylvania, when 81-year-old Angela Kislow would last be seen. She was spotted outside of her residence at Gateway Manor, carrying a small coin purse and an apartment key. These items suggested that she planned to return home later that day. But Angela would never return, and she was never seen again after that day. When she failed to make another appearance in the days to follow, neighbors and family members began to grow concerned, and ultimately a missing person report would be opened. Though her family noted that the woman was experiencing poor mental health, they believed that it would be uncharacteristic of her to just leave without warning. There also seemed to be no indications that she was either ill or having trouble remembering things. The only sign that something was wrong was the woman's concern over not being able to do the things that she used to do. Beyond that, though, Angela was as healthy as she could be at her age and hadn't been diagnosed with any medical issues. 2 days after her disappearance, the investigative team decided to up the search effort by employing search dogs. They were able to quickly pick up on her scent and led their handlers down to Black Diamond Railroad Bridge, where the Susquehanna River ran. They then traced Angela a further 50 feet downstream, leading to the river being thoroughly dragged and searched. Investigators came up empty-handed and found no further clues as to her whereabouts. What many found odd about where her scent was picked up was that it was in an entirely different direction than what Angela was known to walk. She was an avid walker who didn't drive. Her routes consisted mainly of St. Hedwig's Church on Zerby Avenue in Kingston, a mile away from where the sniffer dogs had alerted. Her route was also in the opposite direction of the bridge, so how she ended up there remains a mystery. The police would also carry out a thorough search of Kirby Park and the dike that runs alongside it. Again, nothing was found. The next clue wouldn't come until several days later, and it came in the form of a potential sighting. A man called the police, claiming to have seen a woman matching Angela's description. He explained that he spotted her on Kidder Street and Wilkes-Barre Boulevard on the same day that she went missing. Upon inquiring if she needed assistance, the man's offer received no response. He described the woman as appearing confused and somewhat disoriented. The sighting, though, has never been confirmed, so it's uncertain as to who the potential witness saw on the street that evening. Amid the investigation, police would also visit Angela's home, where they would find her purse on the floor, along with $200 in cash and her identification. The missing woman's key and coin purse remained missing with her. With no leads or clues, the police were forced to call off the search efforts, promising to resume them when and if additional information was uncovered. Since then, though, no further investigation into the vanishing has been made. Angela's bizarre disappearance remains just as inexplicable today. No other potential sightings of her have been uncovered, and no Jane Does match her description, and her fate remains undetermined. Number 6. Kiana Cole, a resident of Brooksville, Florida, had been struggling with substance abuse issues since she was 23 years old. 2019 would mark the 4th year that she'd be battling this unfortunate circumstance. Despite her issues, she maintained regular contact with her family. By February, though, narcotics would become the least of Kiana's worries. A few months earlier, in October of 2018, she'd been the victim of a domestic attempted homicide. The perpetrator was ex-boyfriend Dwayne Williams, who allegedly lured her to Russell Street Park and attacked her. Williams was ultimately charged with attempted homicide in the 2nd degree and resisting arrest. Given that Kiana was the victim, she'd be giving a deposition regarding the incident, which was set for the 11th of February, 2019. But one day before she could make her statement, the 27-year-old would eerily disappear, leaving behind her 3-year-old son. That day, Kiana was dropped off at Shady Oak Villa Circle, where she would be visiting her friend. She left the residence later that evening, somewhere around 11 p.m. She headed down Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard towards Broad Street. Eventually, she was out of sight and would never be seen or heard from again. Kiana was due to pick up her son from a family member the following morning, drop him at daycare, and then head to the state attorney's office. She didn't make it to any of these destinations. According to a relative, the missing woman had been receiving threats against her life regarding her testimony. This made her scared and likely very reluctant to go through with it. Kiana's absence at the court led to the charges against Williams being dropped, but he's since remained the sole person of interest in her disappearance, especially since he was out on bond while awaiting trial. While investigators suspect that foul play is involved in the case, they found little to no evidence to charge anyone in relation to the case. Despite the disturbing lack of progress in the investigation, her family maintains that she would not have left on her own accord. It's strongly believed that Williams has knowledge of her whereabouts and may have had a hand in her eerie disappearance. Number 5. For the past 3 years, the family of Stacey Annette Crawford has been actively posting pleas on several social media sites, hoping that someone has seen her. Stacey's story began on the 21st of July, 2022, when she was 44 years old. As the story goes, the day started off like any other. though much of her movements were unknown. It was that day, around 9 p.m., that she was last seen in Whitewell, Tennessee. Evidence suggests that she was in communication with several individuals that evening, just moments before she disappeared. Ominously, Stacy's red Chevrolet K1500 Tahoe with a Tennessee license plate P8232W vanished along with her. It's unclear whether she was last seen driving it away from her residence, or if it vanished after the fact. Not much is known about the circumstances surrounding the bizarre event at all, aside from just two features: the fact that Stacy was nowhere to be seen, and that her vehicle was gone too. It's uncertain as to when or how she was reported missing, but the investigation would only begin almost a month later. Authorities initially believed that she'd vanished on the 9th of August due to a seemingly erroneous investigation. Phone records, though, would later indicate that she'd gone missing 3 weeks prior. As investigators scrambled to wrap their heads around what may have transpired and how they got to this moment, they would uncover their first clue. It was Stacy's Chevrolet, and it was recovered on the 2nd of September, almost 2 months after she had disappeared. Following the recovery of the vehicle, the police would make their arrest in relation to the missing person case, too. They cuffed 49-year-old Ronnie McFalls of Guild, Tennessee, and escorted him to his jail cell. He was later charged with theft of a motor vehicle and tampering with evidence. Allegedly, Ronnie was in possession of the car, but it's unclear as to how he came to have it or when. He was also in the process of selling it, which is how detectives were able to track it down. The relationship between the missing woman and the man who had her car remains unknown. Ronnie has been listed as a person of interest in the case, but has not been explicitly named as a suspect. Adding another layer of mystery to the disappearance was the announcement that the authorities were looking for a second person in relation to Stacy. That individual is Barbie Anderson, whom the detectives would like to conduct follow-up interviews with. Barbie has since turned herself in, following the announcement, but on an unrelated warrant. She's currently in Marion County Jail, and a follow-up interview remains to be had. Allegedly, several other arrests have been made in connection with the case, with none of the identities being publicly released. Much of the collected evidence, which suggests foul play, hasn't been made public either, leaving many wondering and speculating about the disappearance. The investigation is still ongoing, but 3 years later, still no progress has been made. Number 4. Colleen Paris was born in 1982 to parents Nick and Nancy, a family in which she was the only child. Her childhood was filled with a love for dancing, singing, and sports. Her ambitions never faltered, either when she reached high school, and in September of 2000, she was taking summer classes and working toward receiving her high school diploma. Colleen was 18 that year and was working as a hostess at a restaurant in Plantation, Florida, during whatever spare time she had. That September, Colleen had also purchased plane tickets that would take her to Colorado for her December vacation. But those tickets would never be used. The young woman never received her high school diploma, nor did she make it to her planned vacation. This is because Colleen Elizabeth Paris had vanished. It was around 3 p.m. on the 30th of September when she was last spotted at her family's residence near Flamingo and Sunrise Boulevards. Allegedly, she'd received a phone call from an unidentified caller who abruptly stated that she was going to Coral Springs to get something to eat and left the home. As Colleen slipped out the door, she promised that she'd be back between 5:30 and 6 p.m. that evening, just in time for the planned family trip to the Marlins game. But she never made it home. She missed the Marlins game, and she would never be seen or heard from again. Colleen left her home in her white 1994 Mazda MX-6 with the license plate D48PIE, which was only discovered nearly a week later as the investigation was being launched. The vehicle was abandoned in the parking lot of a shopping plaza located in Tamarack near McNabb Road and Pine Island. Law enforcement flocked to the scene but found no indications of foul play there. Colleen left several of her belongings at home on the day she left, taking only her cell phone and a purse, both of which were nowhere to be found in the parking lot where her car was found abandoned. The vehicle was also locked and the windows rolled up, suggesting that she may have exited the vehicle on her own, secured it, and then vanished into oblivion. Police found no fingerprints on the Mazda's exterior, possibly due to recent raids. Upon questioning the family further, detectives learned that Colleen enjoyed playing pool at a sports bar known as the Bull and Q, which is located at this particular shopping center. Her parents, though, couldn't figure out why she would go here on this specific day without any prior plans after the ominous phone call. The authorities found the Bull and Q to be another focal point for the investigation, but never revealed if anything of importance or interest was found here. Then, as they continued to interview more relatives, they finally found their person of interest. The person was Colleen's uncle, who had allegedly offered to help her secure a modeling job, specifically for undergarments. When the detectives asked if he was willing to take a polygraph test, he refused, only strengthening the suspicions against him. That being said, he continued to deny having anything to do with Colleen's mysterious disappearance. For the next 4 years, the missing woman's parents would leave messages on her cell phone, hoping that one day she would answer them. Eventually, they made the decision to stop paying for the device, but continued to offer a reward using Colleen's life insurance and college tuition money. The reward at that point was up to $30,000 for any information that would lead to their daughter's location and who the unknown killer was. Authorities are reluctant to believe that Colleen had left on her own accord, but are still uncertain of the exact circumstances surrounding the case. Strangely, the young woman also has several distinguishing characteristics, including numerous tattoos and piercings. She has a butterfly on her lower back, Chinese characters on her ankle, and a band around the other. She has ear piercings, a tongue piercing, and a belly piercing. None of these characteristics have come about in any Jane Doe cases, leaving us wondering what truly happened to Colleen. Number 3. Arlington, Texas was home to Manuel Chavarria, the son of Lydia and Manuel Sr. Not much is known about his past, but as far as most are concerned, he had a regular upbringing with no notable disturbances. Yet in March of 1997, something broke in Manuel, and he began to drink heavily and sleep for long periods of time. These sudden aspects were concerning to those who knew him, because they were completely out of character, according to both his roommate and his mother. It was around that time when the 25-year-old began to look noticeably ill, to the point that his mother inquired about the use of narcotics. Manuel denied that he was on anything except alcohol. The sick-looking appearance, sudden alcoholism, and long sleep periods were undoubtedly a cause for concern, leaving many wondering what may have led to this point. At the time, the young man was employed at Harrigan's Restaurant, also located in Arlington. On the 31st of March, he was due to attend a meeting at his place of employment. Around 6 p.m. that evening, Manuel left his residence in his partially primed red-striped 1987 Honda Civic and began making his way to the restaurant. It appears that he never made it to the meeting and vanished shortly after leaving his home, never to be seen or heard from again. When his employer failed to make contact with him that evening, and in the days that followed, he reported Manuel missing to the Arlington Police Department. The initial investigation found that upon leaving his home, the now missing man had failed to take any of his personal belongings with him. Aside from this discovery, no other clues or evidence could be found that would either lead to his whereabouts or suggest the involvement of foul play. The next sign of Manuel wouldn't come for some time. It was on the 17th of May when the Honda was finally located. It was discovered abandoned off of Farm Road 2119 in Culberson County, Texas, on private property. The property owner happened upon the vehicle and promptly called the sheriff's department. Investigators found that the keys were still in the ignition, the windows were rolled down, and there was absolutely no sign of Manuel at the scene. Then a disturbing discovery was made. In the back of the car was a box for a firearm, along with several shells scattered around. Among the items were also a pack of cigarettes, an empty picture frame, and 6 empty bottles. A search of the area soon followed, with police believing that they'd be coming across Manuel's body and a missing firearm. Despite the intense search, no further clues would surface. Back at the office, police were able to trace the firearm and found that it had been purchased from Walmart in Bedford, Texas, just days after Manuel had disappeared. Investigators, though, were unable to identify who purchased the weapon, whether it was Manuel or someone unknown. The missing man's mother believed that her son was heading out to the area in search of their former home located in Pecos, a claim that remains unsubstantiated. Despite the search there, rescue personnel came up empty-handed yet again. Why Manuel would want to go to the home remains unknown, but it's suspected that he may have met with foul play on his way there, if that's what his intended destination was. Relatives and friends do not believe that Manuel would leave without warning or do anything to harm himself. It's been 28 years since he disappeared that evening, vanishing from the face of the earth and leaving a mystery in his wake. Number 2. On March 9, 2007, 20-year-old Jamie Harper left her mother's Paxton home for a party at Maplewood Estates Trailer Park in Rantoul. Her boyfriend allegedly left her there alone, claiming that he had, quote, things to take care of. Jamie planned to stay over at a friend's house after the party, but was last seen leaving the party at 4:30 a.m. and never arrived at that friend's house. Jamie's mother reported her missing a week later, after the friend who was supposed to bring Jamie home never showed up. All of Jamie's belongings, including her daily epilepsy medication, were left behind. Police initially questioned the boyfriend, but cleared him. An anonymous tip that Jamie had overdosed and her body was in Dogtown led to a search of the area, but no evidence was found, and the tip was dismissed as a prank. Investigators noted ominous similarities between Jamie's case and the 1997 disappearance of 19-year-old Heather Zimmerman, who also vanished from a Rantoul party. Police have the same undisclosed person of interest in both cases, a 30-year-old man reportedly seen leaving the party with Jamie. He was questioned but refused a polygraph and traveled out of state afterward. Extradited back to Illinois for a burglary charge, he later demanded an attorney when questioned again about Jamie. A raid on his father's property in October of 2007 yielded a partially burnt bucket, a seatbelt with vital fluid, and clothing, but none were conclusively linked to either missing woman. The person of interest is currently serving a 20-year sentence for aggravated domestic battery and will be eligible for parole in 2031. As of 2025, no arrests have been made, and both Jamie and Heather remain missing, with foul play not ruled out in either case. Number 1. What happened to Gregory Gilbert Treese? This question has been circulating in the Sapulpa, Oklahoma community since 2022, when Gregory ominously vanished without a trace. The then 52-year-old was living in Tulsa and had 2 children with his wife, Billy. Unfortunately, it was around this time that he would receive a daunting diagnosis. Gregory was battling stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which requires daily medication. This distressing story would begin with someone as simple as a fishing trip organized by Gregory's brother. It was the evening hours of the 23rd of July, 2022, when he would leave home with his brother and his brother's girlfriend. As they made their way to Sapulpa, the trip would abruptly halt when the car suddenly broke down somewhere in Jenks. The following morning, the 3 managed to secure a ride and were dropped off at Gregory's mother's house, located west of Sapulpa on 111th Street South between 193rd West and 209th West Avenues. It was here that the siblings stood on the property and watched his brother walk off on a nearby trail, where he would subsequently disappear and never be seen or heard from again. After a few hours with no sign of the sickly man, the brother and his girlfriend headed onto the trail, only to find the missing man's Nike shoes and jean shorts resting on a bench nearby. It wouldn't be until 4 grueling days later that Gregory was finally reported missing to the Creek County Sheriff's Office, prompting a large-scale search effort. The police coordinated multiple searches that included the aid of canine units and drones, covering 30 to 40 acres of area in the vicinity where Gregory was last seen. These efforts yielded no results, and no further clues turned up to point the investigators in the right direction. The missing man is another individual with several distinguishing features, including the names Kyra and Sway tattooed on the left side of his chest. The S runs through a scar. Gregory also has another scar on the right side of his chest with a visible port. He vanished along with his wallet, phone, keys, and prescription medication, indicating that he may return, Yet, there's been no sign of Gregory Treese in the last 3 years. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.